I used to believe silence was passive, just the empty space between words, until my family turned it into a noose. All it took was a single word, no, spoken calmly across a Sunday dinner table, when my brother demanded I co-sign a $55,000 truck loan. I thought I was setting a financial boundary. They decided I was declaring war. By Monday morning, the silence wasn't just quiet, it was heavy, coordinated, and terrifyingly strategic. There is a specific texture to financial trauma that never really leaves your fingertips. It is the ghost sensation of swiping a debit card and holding your breath, waiting for the terminal to decline. Even when you know there are $5,000 in the checking account, it is the way your pulse spikes when a phone rings from an unknown number. An automatic physiological preparation for a debt collector's harassment. I was 33 years old, and I had spent the last 4 years painstakingly scrubbing the red ink from my life. My credit score was finally hovering near 780, a number that felt less like a statistic and more like a fortress I had built brick by brick. After Mark left, after he vanished with the joint savings and left me with a lease I could not afford and credit cards I never realized were maxed out, I had sworn an oath to myself. I would never again let someone else's chaotic gravity pull my financial orbit apart. My life in peaceful, mid-sized Oakbridge was boring by design. I worked as a senior logistics coordinator for a medical supply chain. I lived in a duplex that smelled like lemon polish and quiet. I had a savings account labeled emergency fund that actually contained 6 months of living expenses. I was safe. Then my brother, Caleb, pulled into my driveway, and I watched my safety tremble. He did not pull in quietly. The rumble of the engine vibrated the single-pane windows of my living room. I parted the curtains to see him hopping out of a truck that looked less like a vehicle and more like a rolling monument to testosterone. It was a midnight black, lifted pickup with chrome accents that caught the afternoon sun like a mirror. It was beautiful. Objectively, it was also terrifying. Caleb was 29, with the kind of smile that had gotten him out of speeding tickets and into relationships he had no business being in. He had been talking for months about starting his own landscaping business, a venture I theoretically supported. He was good with his hands, good with people, and terrible with authority. Self-employment made sense. But as I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch, I knew looking at this truck that he was not thinking about overhead or profit margins. He was thinking about how he would look rolling up to the local dive bar. "Willow!" he shouted, throwing his arms out as if he had just personally built the thing. "Tell me this isn't the most beautiful piece of machinery you have ever seen." I crossed my arms, fighting the urge to smile back. He had that effect on everyone. "It is shiny. Caleb, did you buy it?" "We are in the process," he said, patting the hood. "It is a demonstrator model, low miles, basically new. I need something reliable if I'm going to take the business seriously, right? I can't be hauling mulch in that beat-up sedan." "How much?" I asked. I was always the buzzkill. It was my role in the family ecosystem. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, his eyes flickering to the shiny rim of the front tire. 55? 5,500? I asked, though I knew better. 55,000, he corrected, his voice breezing over the word thousand like it was a minor detail. "But listen, the payments are manageable if I pick up just 3 extra clients a month. I have run the numbers. It pays for itself." I did the math in my head. $55,000 for a startup landscaping truck when he didn't even have a full client list yet. It was insanity, but it was his insanity, not mine, or so I thought. "It is a lot of truck, Caleb," I said neutrally, "but if you can swing it, good for you." "Yeah, well, that is the thing," he said, his smile tightening at the corners. "I can swing the payments, no problem. But the bank is being sticky about the interest rate because of that whole credit card thing from last year. They want a co-signer just to lock in the prime rate. It is strictly a formality. I handle the payments. You just lend the signature so I don't get gouged on interest." My stomach dropped. It was the same sensation as missing a step on a staircase. "You want me to co-sign?" "Just to get the deal across the line," he said, stepping closer, invading my personal space with that overwhelming brotherly charm. "Mom and Dad would do it. You know they would. But Dad is retired now, and his debt-to-income ratio is weird with the house refinance. You are the one with the golden ticket credit score. You are the success story." "Caleb," I said, and my voice was harder than I intended. "No," he blinked. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean I cannot sign for a $55,000 loan," I said. "I am looking to buy a house in the next 2 years. A co-signed loan that size sits on my credit report, just like it is my own debt. If you miss a payment, it hits me. If you default, they sue me." "I am not going to default," he said, looking offended. "This is for my career. Willow, why do you always assume I'm going to screw up?" "I am not assuming anything," I lied. I was absolutely assuming he would screw up. Caleb treated money like it was a perishable good that had to be spent before it expired. "It is just a rule I have. I don't co-sign. For anyone. I am not anyone," he snapped. "I am your brother. Let's talk about this at dinner," I said, needing a buffer. "Sunday dinner. We can look at the numbers together." He got back in the truck, revved the engine aggressively, and peeled out of my driveway without waving. The silence he left behind was filled with the smell of unburnt fuel and the heavy realization that Sunday dinner was going to be an ambush. The Bryant family home was a 2-story colonial that looked perfectly respectable from the street. But the foundation had been settling unevenly for years, creating cracks in the drywall that my father simply painted over. It was a fitting metaphor for how we handled problems. We didn't fix them. We just covered them with a fresh coat of denial and pretended the structure wasn't compromised. Sunday dinner was roast chicken, green beans, and tension so thick you could carve it. My mother, Linda, was bustling around the kitchen with a manic energy, refilling water glasses that were already full. My father, Robert, sat at the head of the table, chewing slowly, his eyes fixed on the centerpiece. Caleb sat opposite me, looking like a martyr in a flannel shirt. We made it through the weather and the local gossip before my father cleared his throat. He put his fork down with a deliberate clatter. "Caleb tells us you are hesitant about helping him with the business truck," Dad said. He didn't look at me. He looked at the salt shaker. "I am not hesitant, Dad," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I am refusing. There is a difference." "Refusing," my mother echoed. Stopping mid-stride, she looked at me with a mixture of confusion and hurt, as if I had just slapped her. "Willow, honey, that is a very strong word. We are family. We help each other." "I am happy to help," I said. I had prepared for this. I pulled a small notepad from my purse. I looked up some options. There is a dealership on 4th Street selling used heavy-duty trucks for $20,000. They are solid, reliable, and half the price. If Caleb buys one of those, the payments would be low enough that he wouldn't need a co-signer. Or there is a co-op program for small business owners where you can lease equipment. I can help him fill out the paperwork for that. Caleb scoffed, rolling his eyes. "I am not driving a rusted-out piece of junk to client meetings. Willow, image matters. You work in corporate. You should know that." "You are a landscaper, Caleb," I said. "People expect your truck to be dirty. If you show up in a $55,000 luxury vehicle, they are going to wonder why you are overcharging them to mow their lawns." "That is not the point." Caleb slammed his hand on the table. The water glasses jumped. "The point is that you have the ability to make this happen for me, and you are choosing not to. You are sitting on a pile of cash and perfect credit, judging me." "It is not about judgment," I said, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "It is about risk. I spent 4 years fixing my life after Mark. I cannot risk $55,000 on a truck that you don't actually need." "You think I am Mark," Caleb spat. "That is enough," Dad said, his voice booming. He looked at me then, his expression cold. "Willow, in this family, we do not hoard our blessings. Your brother needs a leg up. We carried you when you were fresh out of college. We helped you move. We were there when that loser boyfriend left you. And I'm grateful, I said, fighting the tremble in my voice. But you didn't co-sign a loan for me. I fixed my own mess. I am offering Caleb a solution that doesn't put me in danger. Why is the only acceptable help the kind that puts me at risk? Because it is what he wants, Mom cried out, tears welling in her eyes. Why must you be so difficult? Why does everything have to be a negotiation with you? He is your brother. If the situation were reversed, he would do it for you. I looked at Caleb. He was smirking slightly, just barely, enjoying the defense. He wouldn't do it for me. We all knew that. He couldn't do it for me even if he wanted to. I am sorry, I said, placing my napkin on the table. I cannot sign. I will not sign if he wants the $20,000 truck. I will drive him to the lot myself, but I am not signing for $55,000. If you walk away from this table without helping your brother, Dad said, his voice low and dangerous, don't expect us to be there the next time you need something. Loyalty works both ways. Willow. This isn't loyalty, I said, standing up. This is financial suicide. I walked out. No one stopped me. The silence that followed me to the door was louder than the shouting. The next morning, Monday, I woke up with the heavy feeling of a hangover, though I hadn't had a drop of alcohol. My phone sat on the nightstand. Dark, usually, at 7:30 in the morning. My mother sent a GIF. It was always something cheesy. A cat hanging from a branch saying, "Hang in there," or a sparkling coffee cup saying, "Rise and shine." It was annoying, and I loved it. It was the heartbeat of my day. Today, there was nothing. I opened the family group chat. The Bryant bunch. The last message was from me. 2 days ago, a picture of my dog sleeping. Below it, nothing, no reaction to the dinner, no guilt trips, just a vacuum. I typed out a message. Good morning. Hope everyone has a good week. I watched the screen. Read by Mom. Read by Caleb. Read by Dad. No typing bubble appeared. No thumbs up. I tried to shake it off. I told myself they were just cooling down. They were dramatic people. They needed a day to stew in their righteous indignation before they came back to tell me I was selfish. But they loved me anyway. I went to work. I focused on shipping manifests and international tariffs. I buried myself in the logistics of moving boxes from point A to point B, where the variables were controllable and the outcomes were predictable. By Wednesday, the silence had mutated. It wasn't just a lack of noise. It felt active. I was supposed to have lunch with Mrs. Gable, a family friend who had known me since I was in diapers. We met once a month to gossip. At 10 o'clock, I got a text. Something came up. Can't make it. No offer to reschedule. No explanation. Just the cancellation. I texted my cousin, Sarah. We were close, or I thought we were. She was hosting a barbecue on Saturday for her husband's birthday. I had already bought a gift, a set of high-end grilling tools. Hey, Sarah, what time should I come by on Saturday? Do you need me to bring the potato salad? 3 hours later, a reply. Actually, we are keeping it super small this year. Just immediate family and the guys from his work. Sorry. Catch you next time. Just immediate family. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. I was immediate family. I was her first cousin. We had grown up sharing bathwater. I called my dad. It went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I called my mom. It rang 4 times, then cut to voicemail. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It felt childish. It felt high school. It was the silent treatment, the oldest weapon in the dysfunctional family arsenal. The goal was simple. Make the target feel so isolated, so cold, that they will do anything to get back into the warmth, even sign a $55,000 loan. I refused to break. I told myself I was an adult. I didn't need their validation to exist. On Thursday evening, I was at the grocery store, buying dinner for one, when I ran into Mr. Henderson, a deacon at my parents' church. He was a nice man, usually full of jokes. When he saw me in the produce aisle, His smile faltered. "Willow?" he said, nodding stiffly. "Hi, Mr. Henderson," I said, forcing a cheerfulness I didn't feel. "How is the choir?" "Fine," he said. He looked at his shopping cart, then back at me, his eyes searching my face. "I was sorry to hear about your troubles." My stomach tightened. "Troubles?" "Your dad mentioned you were having some financial difficulties," he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, "that you had to back out of helping Caleb because things were tight. If you need the church benevolence fund to look at anything—" My jaw dropped. "What?" "No shame in it," he said quickly. "Times are hard, but you should have told Caleb sooner. He was telling us how you promised him that truck and then pulled the rug out at the dealership. Poor kid was embarrassed." The narrative shifted in my brain, clicking into place like a puzzle piece. They weren't just ignoring me, they were rewriting reality. Caleb hadn't just told them I refused. He had told them I promised and then reneged. He had painted me as the unreliable one, the cruel sister who dangled a dream and then snatched it away. And by claiming I had financial difficulties, they neutralized my valid objection. It wasn't that I was being responsible. It was that I was secretly broke. It undercut my success. It humiliated me. "Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, "I did not promise Caleb anything, and I am not having financial difficulties. I refused because the loan was a bad idea." He looked at me, and I saw the doubt in his eyes. He believed my father. Robert Bryant was a pillar of the community. I was the divorced daughter who lived alone. "Right," he said, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, good seeing you. Willow?" He hurried away. I went home and cried. I cried not because I was sad, but because I was furious. I paced my living room, having imaginary arguments with my parents. I drafted long, angry texts that I didn't send. I almost called Caleb to scream at him, but I knew that was what he wanted. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to engage so he could call me crazy. Friday arrived, a week of silence, a week of being a ghost in my own family. I came home from work, exhausted, and threw my purse on the couch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a spam email or a weather alert. It was a notification from Credit Guard, the monitoring service I had subscribed to after the Mark disaster. New inquiry detected. Equifax. Lendright Financial Services. Date. Today. I froze. Lendright. That was the company Caleb had mentioned. The lender with the high interest rates that specialized in subprime auto loans. I stared at the screen. Why would there be an inquiry? A hard inquiry meant someone had applied for credit. It meant someone had given them my social security number, my address, and my permission to check my file. I hadn't done any of that. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a frantic, bird-like rhythm. I called the number on the back of the alert immediately. It was 5:30 in the evening. I prayed their customer service was still open. "Thank you for calling Lendright," a robotic voice said. "For new applications, press 1. I pressed 1. "Representative," I said to the automated system. "Representative," a woman came on the line. "This is Sheila. How can I help you?" "Hi, Sheila," I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "I just got an alert about a credit inquiry from your company. I did not apply for a loan. I need to know what is going on." "Okay, I can look into that," Sheila said, sounding bored. "Can I have your social security number?" I gave it to her. There was a pause. The sound of typing. "I see an application here submitted today," she said. "For a commercial vehicle loan. Joint application. Primary applicant is Caleb Bryant." The room spun. "I did not authorize that," I said. "I am not a joint applicant. I refuse to sign." "Well, it is in the system as a pending application," she said. "It was submitted through the dealership portal." "Which dealership?" "I cannot release that information without full verification," she said. "I need to verify the contact information on the application." "My name is Willow Bryant," I said. "I live at 402 Elm Street." "That matches the name," she said. But the address on the application is different. What address is it? I cannot tell you that, she said. I can only confirm if you give it to me. Is it 12 Oak Lane? I asked. My parents' address. Yes, she said. Okay, I said, my hand shaking. Listen to me. That is not my address. I did not apply. You need to cancel this. To make changes to the application or withdraw, I need to send a verification code to the contact method on file, she said. I have an email address starting with J and a phone number ending in 44. I stopped. What? An email starting with J, she repeated, and a mobile number ending in 44. My name is Willow, I said slowly. My email starts with W. My phone number ends in 89. Who is J? I don't know, ma'am, Sheila said, losing patience. That is the email listed for the cosigner. If you cannot verify the code, I cannot discuss the details further or make changes to the file. You will need to submit a fraud affidavit via our website. Wait, I said. Please, someone is using my information. Submit the affidavit, she said. Have a nice day. The line went dead. I stood in the center of my living room. The phone still pressed to my ear. Email starting with J, phone ending in 44. Caleb's middle name was James. His girlfriend's name was Jessica. And then, the cold reality washed over me. The silence. The absolute, hermetically sealed silence of the last week. It hadn't been a punishment. Punishment is loud. Punishment demands a reaction. This had been a delay tactic. They weren't ignoring me to hurt my feelings. They were ignoring me to keep me away. They were ignoring me so I wouldn't ask questions while they tried to push the loan through behind my back. Using my history, my name, and my parents' address to bypass me entirely, they thought if they just got it signed, if the truck just appeared, I would be too family-oriented, too loyal, to turn them in for fraud. They were banking on my guilt to cover their crime. I looked at the credit card notification again. The screen was bright in the darkening room. You want silence? I whispered to the empty house. Okay, I can be silent too. I opened my laptop. I didn't go to the LendRight website. I went to the credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I clicked the button that said, Freeze my credit. I entered my password. I confirmed my identity. I watched the little padlock icon snap shut on the screen. Let them try to run it again. Let them try to explain to the dealership why the cosigner had suddenly locked the doors. I sat back in the chair, the glow of the screen illuminating my face. The sadness was gone, evaporated by the heat of the betrayal. I wasn't the daughter anymore. I wasn't the sister. I was the victim, and they had made a fatal error. They thought I was collateral. They forgot I was an accountant, and I was about to audit the entire family. The glow of my laptop screen was the only light in the living room, casting long, unnatural shadows against the wall. I sat with my legs tucked under me, a mug of cold tea forgotten on the coaster, watching the progress bar on the Equifax website crawl toward completion. Freezing your credit is a strange, anticlimactic act of modern warfare. It is just a click, a password, and a confirmation screen. There is no explosion, no siren, no sound of a vault door slamming shut. But as the words, "Security freeze," active appeared in bold green letters, I felt a physical shift in the room, as if the air pressure had suddenly dropped. I did the same for TransUnion and Experian, locking down the 3 digital gateways to my financial identity. Then, I pulled the full reports. I downloaded the PDFs and opened them side by side, scrolling past the green check marks of my student loan payments and the steady history of my car lease. I was looking for the wounds. There they were. 2 hard inquiries in the last 48 hours. One from LendRight Financial Services, which I already knew about, and another from a company called DealerTrack, a system used by car dealerships to blast an application out to multiple lenders at once. My eyes scanned down to the account status section. Usually, this area lists open credit cards or mortgages, but there, at the very bottom, Under a section labeled pending/provisional was a line item that made the bile rise in my throat. Lend right, auto finance. Status, awaiting documents. Note, cosigner verification pending. It was not just an inquiry, it was an active application. Someone had filled out the forms, entered my social security number, listed my income, and pressed submit. They had created a ghost version of me, a Willow Bryant who was generous, reckless, and willing to sign away her future for a truck she would never drive. I closed the laptop with a snap that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet house. I needed to see Caleb. My brother lived in a garden-style apartment complex on the south side of the city, the kind of place where people left trash bags on their balconies and the pool was always closed for maintenance. It was 10 o'clock at night, but I knew he would be up. Caleb was nocturnal, fueled by energy drinks and the glow of video games. I did not call first. I drove over, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands began to cramp. I parked next to his beat-up sedan, the one he claimed was too embarrassing to drive, and marched up the stairs to Unit 2B. I pounded on the door. It took a full minute before it opened. Caleb stood there in basketball shorts and a faded t-shirt, holding a slice of pizza. He looked annoyed, his brow furrowed, but underneath the annoyance, I saw a flash of something else. Surprise? Guilt? Willow? He said, chewing. What are you doing here? It is late. We need to talk, I said, pushing past him into the apartment. It smelled like stale beer and laundry detergent. The living room was a mess of wires and controllers. I turned to face him, my back to the television where a game was paused. Did you apply for that loan in my name? I asked. I did not want to dance around it. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it now. Caleb laughed, a short, sharp bark of a sound. He closed the door and leaned against it, crossing his ankles. Wow. Hello to you too. Is this what you drove over here for? To accuse me of felonies? I got a notification. Caleb, I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to keep it steady. Lendright Financial, a hard inquiry on my credit, an application with my name on it. You are paranoid, he said, taking another bite of pizza. He waved the crust at me dismissively. I told you. I was shopping around. Maybe the finance guy ran your name by accident because I mentioned you might co-sign. These guys are aggressive. They push buttons before they listen. I told you on Sunday I would not co-sign, I said. Why would you even mention my name? Because I was hoping you would change your mind, he shouted, his cool facade cracking for a second. I was hoping my sister would stop being a selfish ice queen and help me out. So yeah, I mentioned you. I gave them your name as a potential reference. If they ran it as a co-signer, that is their screw-up, not mine. They have my social security number. Caleb, I said. They have my income information. Did you give them that? He rolled his eyes, pushing off the door and walking toward the kitchen. I don't know, Willow. I filled out a lot of paperwork. I might have written it down on a worksheet or something. You are making a mountain out of a molehill. It is one inquiry. Your credit score will survive. It is fraud, I said. It is identity theft. Oh, stop, he groaned, opening the fridge. You love that word, don't you? Fraud. You want to send your own brother to jail because of a clerical error at a dealership? That is sick, Willow. That is honestly sick. He was doing it. He was twisting reality, making me the aggressor. He was making me feel crazy for protecting myself. For a second, I faltered. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the finance manager had been overzealous and Caleb was just sloppy. Then he spoke again, his back to me as he rummaged for a soda. Besides, he muttered, it doesn't matter. The bank put a verification hold on it anyway because the address didn't match the bureau file, so nothing happened. You can relax. I went still. What did you say? I asked very quietly. He froze. He stood up slowly, holding a can of soda, and turned around. His eyes darted to the side, away from mine. What? You said the bank put a verification hold on it, I said. How do you know that? The guy told me, he stammered. The finance guy. He called me and said there was a hold. Lendwright told me they couldn't share details without verifying the cosigner, I said. Stepping closer to him, they wouldn't tell the primary applicant about a specific internal status code like a verification hold unless the primary applicant was trying to push the application through. You tried to clear the hold, didn't you? You tried to explain why the addresses didn't match. I don't know what you are talking about, he said, his voice rising in pitch. You are talking gibberish. You are obsessed with this. Go home, Willow. Go home and count your money. You used Mom and Dad's address, I said. That is why it flagged. You tried to route the mail to them so I wouldn't see it. Get out, he screamed, pointing at the door. Get out of my house. You are crazy. No wonder Mark left you. The mention of Mark was a low blow, a precision strike meant to cripple me. It worked, but not in the way he intended. Instead of crying, I felt a cold, hard armor snap into place over my chest. Mark had stolen my money because I trusted him. Caleb was stealing my identity because he thought he owned me. I froze my credit, I said calmly. So good luck with the truck? I walked out. He slammed the door behind me so hard the frame rattled. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I could not focus on logistics when my own life was being rerouted without my consent. I needed to understand how they had done it. Caleb was lazy. He wasn't a hacker. He didn't know my social security number by heart. He didn't know my exact annual salary. To fill out a convincing application, he needed source documents. I thought about the address he had used. My parents' house. I got in my car and drove to the suburbs. The house I grew up in sat on a quiet cul-de-sac. The lawn perfectly manicured. Caleb's handiwork, no doubt. It looked idyllic. It looked safe. I walked up the driveway, my shoes clicking on the pavement. I didn't have a key anymore. I had returned it after the divorce when I moved into the duplex. A symbolic gesture of independence that now felt like a strategic error. I rang the doorbell. I heard footsteps inside. The heavy wood door opened, but the storm door remained shut, locked. My mother stood on the other side of the glass. She was wearing her housecoat, her hair perfectly coiffed. She looked at me, and her expression was not one of motherly welcome. It was the look you give a solicitor you intend to turn away. Willow, she said. Her voice was muffled by the glass. Mom, open the door, I said. I need to come in. I don't think that is a good idea, she said. Your father is very upset. You upset Caleb last night. He called us. He was nearly in tears. Willow, he says you accused him of being a criminal. He tried to take out a loan in my name. Mom, I said, pressing my hand against the glass. I need to see the papers. I know you have them. We don't have any papers, she said, her eyes shifting away. We don't know what you are talking about. The box, I said. The plastic file box from my college years. The one you said you would keep in the attic for safekeeping because my apartment didn't have storage. It has my old tax returns, my social security card, my birth certificate. She stiffened. That is family property. It is safe. It is my property, I said, and I want it back, now. You are not acting like yourself, she said, shaking her head. You are being hysterical. We are just trying to help your brother build a future. Why do you want to destroy him? I am not destroying him, I pleaded. He is committing fraud. If he gets caught, he goes to jail. I am trying to stop this before it gets that far. Give me the box. Mom, go home. Willow, she said. Come back when you are ready to apologize. Mom, please, I said. He used your address. If the mail comes here, you have to give it to me. It is a federal crime to open my mail. There is no mail for you here, she said sharply. You don't live here anymore. You made that very clear. She closed the heavy wooden door. I heard the deadbolt slide home. I stood on the porch of my childhood home, staring at the brass knocker, realizing with a sick, sinking feeling that the locks weren't there to keep strangers out. They were there to keep me out. I walked back to my car, my legs feeling like lead. As I pulled away from the curb, I saw the curtain in the living room window twitch. They were watching. They were barricaded inside with my identity, justifying their theft as parental love. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Marlene. Marlene was my mother's younger sister. The cool aunt who slipped me wine coolers when I was 19 and listened to my relationship drama without judgment. She was the family Switzerland, forever neutral, forever trying to broker peace treaties over Thanksgiving turkey. "Willow," she said, her voice low. "I only have a minute. I am at the grocery store." "Did Mom tell you?" I asked, my voice dull. "She called me," Marlene said. "She is spinning a story, honey. She is telling everyone you are having a breakdown. She told the cousins you are off your meds. Do you even take meds?" "No," I said. I didn't think so," Marlene sighed. "Listen to me. You need to be careful." "I am being careful," I said. I froze my credit. "No, I mean, you need to understand the landscape," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "This isn't just about Caleb wanting a shiny truck. They are in a bind." "Willow." "Who is?" "Your parents. And Caleb. It is all mixed up together," she said. "I don't know the details, and I don't want to know, but I overheard Robert talking to Caleb a few weeks ago. There is something about a balloon payment coming due, or a lien. I didn't catch it all, but they are desperate. The truck. I think the truck is a piece of a puzzle, not the whole picture." "What kind of puzzle?" I asked, gripping the phone. "Money moving around," she said vaguely. "Refinancing, shifting debt, robbing Peter to pay Paul, your refusal. It didn't just stop a purchase, it messed up a domino effect they were banking on. That is why they are so angry. You jammed the gears. They are stealing my identity." "Marlene," I said. "They are criminals. They are desperate," she corrected. "And desperate people justify terrible things. Just watch your back, and don't tell them I called." The line clicked dead. I sat in my kitchen, the silence of the house pressing in on me. A balloon payment? A lien? My parents were supposed to be comfortable. My father had a pension. The house should have been nearly paid off. What had they done? On Friday, the war moved from my family to my workplace. I was at my desk, trying to route a shipment of surgical gloves to Chicago, when an instant message popped up on my screen. "Stacy from HR. Willow, can you come see me for a second? Bring your badge. Bring your badge." That was never good. I walked to the HR suite with a pit in my stomach. Stacy was a nice woman with photos of her golden retrievers all over her desk, but today she looked grim. She closed the door behind me and gestured for me to sit. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "I wanted to ask you that," she said. "We got a call this morning, a frighteningly aggressive call." My heart stopped. "From who?" "A company called Rapid Cash Verify," she said, glancing at her notes. "They claimed they were verifying employment for a high-value loan application. They had your social security number, Willow. They had your salary bracket. They wanted me to confirm your exact start date and your last 3 pay stub amounts." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Did you tell them?" "No," she said firmly. "I told them we do not release employee data over the phone without written consent." The man on the phone got nasty. He said they had a signed authorization form from you. He said if I didn't verify, the deal would fall through and you would sue the company for obstruction. "I didn't sign anything," I whispered. "Stacy, I swear, I didn't apply for a loan." "I figured," she said, her expression softening. "Because the authorization form he emailed me? It looked off. The signature looked like someone traced it with a shaky hand, and the date was written in a different pen." She slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a fax copy. "Employment verification authorization," at the bottom. A scrawl that looked vaguely like my name, but the loops were wrong. The W was too wide. It was my father's handwriting. I would recognize those blocky letters anywhere. He had tried to forge my signature, my own father. "I need to be honest with you, Willow," Stacy said gently. If this is identity theft, we have to flag it. If creditors start calling the main switchboard harassing us, it becomes a performance issue. It becomes a distraction. I know, I said, fighting back tears. I am handling it. I promise. It won't happen again. Do you want a copy of this for your police report? She asked. I looked at the paper. Evidence. That is what it was. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a weapon my family had forged to use against me. Yes, I said. Please. The police station smelled like floor wax and old coffee. I sat on a hard plastic bench, clutching a folder that contained my credit reports, the facts from HR, and a timeline I had scribbled on a notepad. I felt ridiculous. I felt like a traitor. When my number was called, I walked up to the high desk. The officer was a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read, Officer Miller. How can I help you? She asked, not looking up from her computer. I need to file an identity theft report, I said. She sighed, reaching for a form. Credit card stolen? Online breach? No, I said. My brother and my parents. She stopped typing and looked at me. Her expression shifted from boredom to a weary kind of pity. Family fraud. Okay. Do you have proof? I have inquiries I didn't authorize, I said. I have a forged employment verification form sent to my work. I have a credit freeze confirmation. Okay, she said. Here's the thing. You can file the report. We will give you a case number. You need that for the credit bureaus to block the fraudulent accounts permanently. But actually prosecuting? She leaned forward. The district attorney hates these cases, unless you're willing to testify against them in open court, unless you are willing to see your brother in handcuffs. Are you? The question hung in the air. Was I? I thought about the truck. I thought about the $55,000. I thought about the silence. I thought about my mother closing the door in my face. I thought about my father forging my name while sitting at the desk where he used to help me with my homework. I don't want to put them in jail, I said, my voice trembling. I just want the debt gone. I want to be safe. Gias. To get the debt gone, you have to prove it wasn't you, she said. To prove it wasn't you, you have to prove it was them. You can't have it both ways. Honey, if you file this, you are lighting a fuse. Once the fraud investigators at the bank get this police report number, they are going to go after the person who submitted the application. They won't care that it is your brother. I looked at the form. Suspect name. I picked up the pen. My hand shook, but I wrote it. Caleb James Bryant. File it, I said. The following Tuesday, I sat in the office of Elias Vance, a consumer rights attorney I had found online. His office was in a strip mall, sandwiched between a chiropractor and a vape shop, but the reviews said he was a pit bull. He was a small man with sharp features and a suit that was slightly too large for him. He read through my file in silence, flipping pages with a wet thumb. Classic, he said finally, tossing the file onto his desk. Textbook familial coercion. Is it? I asked. I feel like I'm losing my mind. They are acting like I am the one betraying them. That is the trap, Vance said, leaning back in his chair. Listen to me, Willow. Fraud is not just about money. It is about entitlement. Your family views your credit score as a communal asset. They think because they raised you, they own your financial identity. When you said no, you didn't just deny a loan. You denied their ownership of you. They are saying I promised, I said. They are telling everyone I backed out. Darvo, Vance said. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. They are painting you as unstable so that if you do speak up, you look like the crazy daughter with a grudge. If we go to court, their defense will be implied consent. They will say, she gave us her info. She helped us fill it out. Then she got cold feet and cried fraud. It happens all the time. How do I stop it? We stop playing defense, Vance said, his eyes narrowing. We start playing offense. You filed the police report. Good. That is step 1. Step 2 is the paper trail. You need to document everything. Every call, Every text, every interaction. Stop trying to reconcile. Stop trying to get them to admit they are sorry. They aren't sorry. They are mad they got caught. He pulled a legal pad toward him. We are going to send a dispute letter to the lenders, he said. We are going to demand the IP addresses used to submit the applications. We are going to demand the call recordings where they impersonated you. We are going to build a wall of evidence so high that if they try to climb over it, they will break their necks. My aunt said they are in a bind, I said. That this messes up something bigger, Vance paused, his pen hovering over the paper. That is interesting. If they are churning debt, using new loans to pay off old ones, that is a Ponzi scheme, just on a micro level. If that is the case, Willow, you are not just a cosigner. You are a fresh host for a parasite. He looked me dead in the eye. You have a choice, he said. You can be the good daughter and pay for the truck, or you can be the bad daughter and keep your life. You cannot be both. I thought about the empty group chat. I thought about the good morning texts that never came. I thought about the verification hold slip-up. They had already made their choice. They chose the money. I want to keep my life, I said. Good, Vance said. Then let's get to work. I walked out of his office into the bright afternoon sun. The air felt cleaner, sharper. The guilt was still there, a heavy stone in my gut. But the confusion was gone. I was done waiting for the phone to ring. I was done hoping for an apology. The silence was no longer a weapon they were using against me. It was the quiet before the storm I was about to unleash. I drove home. Not to cry, but to organize my screenshots. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it simply Evidence. The envelope arrived on a gray Tuesday, wedged between a flyer for a pizza place and a utility bill. It was thick, heavy, and official. The kind of mail that commands attention simply by its weight. The return address was Lend Right Financial Services, printed in bold, aggressive blue ink. But it was the addressee that made my breath catch in my throat. Willow J. Bryant. My middle name is Elizabeth. I have never used the initial J in my life. It was a small error, a typo perhaps, but in the context of the last 2 weeks, it felt like a fingerprint. It was the kind of mistake someone makes when they are rushing, or when they are guessing, or when they are trying to differentiate a fraudulent file from a legitimate one in a database. I carried the envelope into my kitchen and slid it open with a knife. My hands steady with the unnatural calm of someone investigating a crime scene. Inside was a sheaf of papers. The top page was bright yellow, stamped with the words, Action Required. Cosigner Document Correction. I read the letter. Dear Miss Bryant, we received your application for the 2024 Ford F-250. However, the Social Security number provided on the primary application does not match the profile for Willow J. Bryant found in our preliminary scan. To proceed with the funding, please sign the attached affidavit correcting the SSN and providing a copy of your current driver's license. Please return these documents to the dealership finance office immediately to avoid expiration of the rate lock. I stared at the paper. They were not asking me if I applied. They assumed I had applied. They just needed me to fix the clerical error so they could release the money. But the most damning detail was not the wrong middle initial. It was the address listed in the current residence field on the affidavit, 12 Oak Lane, my parents' house. I looked at the postmark on the envelope. It had been mailed 3 days ago, before I had successfully placed the fraud alert that stopped the process. But why had it come to my house? Here at the duplex, if the address on the file was 12 Oak Lane? I flipped the envelope over. There, in the corner, was a yellow sticker from the post office. Forwarding address detected. Delivered to current resident. The irony was staggering. I had set up mail forwarding 3 years ago when I moved out. A standard permanent forward that the post office kept on file. The fraudsters, my family, had used my parents' address to ensure I never saw the paperwork. But the automated efficiency of the United States Postal Service had betrayed them. The computer saw Willow Bryant, saw the forwarding order, and slapped a yellow sticker on the crime, delivering the evidence right to my door. I picked up the phone and called the number on the letterhead. I didn't bother with the main menu this time. I dialed the extension for the funding department listed at the bottom. Lendright Funding. This is Marcus, a voice answered. This is Willow Bryant, I said, my voice crisp. I received a document correction request. Application number 45990. 1 second, Marcus said. I heard keys clacking. Okay, I see it. Looks like we just need that SSN correction and the ID. Did you want to fax that over or bring it to the dealer? I want to know why the address on the application is 12 Oak Lane, I said. I haven't lived there in 3 years. Oh, Marcus said, sounding unconcerned. The notes here say the primary applicant, Caleb Bryant, requested all loan documents be mailed to the Oak Lane address. He stated that the co-signer was currently in the process of moving back into the family home and that mail service at the old address was unreliable. I closed my eyes. Moving back into the family home. They weren't just stealing my credit. They were rewriting my life. They were constructing a narrative where I was a dependent, a boomerang child returning to the nest, a status that made financial enmeshment seem natural, even expected. Marcus, I said, I am not moving back. I did not apply for this loan. This application is fraudulent. There was a long silence on the line. Then, the tone of his voice changed. It went from helpful customer service agent to guarded bureaucrat. I see, he said. Since you have already flagged this with our fraud department, I cannot discuss the file further. You will need to wait for the investigator to contact you. Who is the finance manager handling this? I asked quickly. Before he could hang up, the letter says to return it to the dealership finance office. Which one? The dealer on file is Russo Ford, Marcus said, slipping up. But ma'am, I really cannot. Thank you, I said, and hung up. Russo Ford. I knew that name. I knew it intimately. Mr. Russo was a deacon at my parents' church. He had been to our house for 4th of July barbecues. He had given Caleb his first job washing cars when he was 16. The pieces were not just falling into place. They were welding themselves together into a cage. I did not call my attorney immediately. I needed to look my father in the eye. I drove to 12 Oak Lane. It was late afternoon, the time of day when the shadows stretch long and thin across the manicured lawns of the suburbs. I parked on the street, not in the driveway. I wanted a quick exit. I walked up the path. I didn't knock this time. I used the spare key I had kept hidden in the magnetic rock by the garden hose, a key they had forgotten to reclaim during the lockout the other day. I opened the door and stepped into the foyer. The house smelled of lemon pledge and pot roast. It was the smell of my childhood, a sensory trigger that usually made me feel safe. Now, it made me feel like I had walked into a trap. My parents were in the living room. My mother was folding laundry on the sofa. My father was in his recliner, reading the local paper. They looked up, startled, as I walked in. Willow, my mother said, dropping a towel. How did you get in? The rock, I said. I held up the thick envelope from Lendright. This came to my house today. The post office forwarded it. My father lowered the paper. His face was unreadable, a mask of stone. We told you not to come over until you were ready to apologize to your brother. I am not here to apologize, I said, tossing the envelope onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy slap. I am here to tell you that I know you put my name on the application. I know you listed this address so I wouldn't see the mail. I know you told the bank I was moving back in. It was a formality, my father said. His voice was not loud. It was terrifyingly calm. We were handling it. You wouldn't have had to do a thing. We were going to make the payments. We just needed the signature to get the rate. You forged my signature, I said. That is not a formality. Dad, that is a felony. It is only a crime if you report it, he said. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. It wasn't anger, it was disgust. You are making trouble, Willow. You are making trouble where there doesn't need to be any. I am protecting myself, I cried, my voice cracking. You were going to saddle me with $55,000 of debt without asking me. We asked you, my mother interjected, her voice shrill. We asked you at dinner. You said no. You forced our hand. I forced your hand? I stared at her. I said no. No means no. It doesn't mean find a way to do it anyway. You have so much, my father said, gesturing vaguely at me, at my clothes, at the idea of me. You have your job, your savings, your independence. Caleb has nothing. He is drowning. We are trying to throw him a lifeline, and you are standing on the dock complaining about the color of the rope. He is drowning because he buys things he can't afford, I shouted. And now you are drowning too? Is that it? Aunt Marlene said you were in a bind. Is that why you need the truck? To flip it? To get cash out? My father stood up. He was not a tall man, but in that moment, he seemed to fill the room. You listen to me, he said. We have carried this family on our backs for 40 years. We have made sacrifices you don't even know about. If you go through with this, if you report this to the police, if you drag our name through the mud, you are done. Done? I whispered. Done, he repeated. We cut out people who don't support the family. We did it to your Uncle Jerry when he tried to sue us over the grandmother's estate. We will do it to you. No calls, no holidays, no inheritance. You will be a stranger to us. The silence that followed was absolute. I looked at my mother. She was looking at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. She was not going to save me. She was choosing her husband. She was choosing the son who needed her, over the daughter who didn't. You aren't cutting me out, I said, my voice shaking but clear. I am cutting myself free. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I left the envelope on the table. The next morning, I sat in Elias Vance's office. I told him everything. The envelope, the address, the threat, the mention of Russo Ford. Vance listened, his eyes gleaming like a predator spotting a wounded gazelle. Russo Ford, he said, writing the name on his legal pad and circling it 3 times. That is the linchpin. A bank doesn't just process a fraudulent application on its own. They have safeguards, identity verification quizzes, IP tracking. For this to get as far as it did, to the point of generating a contract, someone at the dealership had to override the red flags. The finance manager, I said. Marcus at the bank said the finance manager vouched for the application. Exactly, Vance said. They call it pushing paper. The finance manager gets a commission on the loan. The dealership moves a unit. Everyone wins, except you. He drafted a letter while I sat there. It was not a polite letter. It was a formal dispute under the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Truth in Lending Act. It demanded the original application, the metadata of the digital signature, the recording of any verification calls, and the IP logs of the submission. I am sending this to Lendright's legal department, Vance said, and I am sending a copy to the general manager of Russo Ford. I am putting them on notice that we suspect collusion. Mr. Russo is a family friend, I said quietly. Not anymore, Vance said. Now he is a co-conspirator. He sent the letters via certified mail. 2 days later, the tone changed. Vance called me at work. Lendright just called me, he said. Their general counsel. They are suddenly very interested in resolving this misunderstanding. They are claiming they were provided false information by a third party. The dealership? They won't say it on the record yet, Vance said. But the attorney hinted. He asked if I knew a Mr. David S. at the dealership. He said the notes on the file show that David S. manually verified your identity by claiming he had seen your driver's license in person. I have never met a David S., I said, and I haven't been to that dealership in 5 years. Well, Vance said grimly, David S. is about to have a very bad week, because claiming he saw you when he didn't, that is fraud. And since the mail was routed to your parents, it looks like David S. was doing a favor for your father. Connections, I whispered. My father always bragged about his connections. I know a guy. I can make a call. I realized then that my father's connections were not just networking, they were a corruption pipeline. He had used his social capital to recruit an accomplice to rob his own daughter. While the legal battle was being fought with letters and subpoenas, the war at home moved to a new front: the internet. I was eating a salad at my desk when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my friend Maya. Don't look at Facebook, naturally. I opened Facebook immediately. There, at the top of my feed, was a post from Caleb. It was a photo of him and my parents, smiling at some barbecue years ago. The caption was vague, designed to solicit pity without giving enough details to be sued for libel. It is funny how money changes people. You think you know someone, think you can count on them to have your back, and then when things get tough, they show their true colors. Sad to realize that for some people, a bank account number is more important than blood. Keep your circle small. Friends. Betrayal comes from the people you least expect. It had 40 likes. The comments were a cesspool of validation. Stay strong. Brother? Wow. Sorry to hear that. Family first? Always. Anyone who doesn't get that isn't worth your time. And then, the specific attacks. My cousin Jenna had commented, "Some people get a little success and forget where they came from. Karma is real." My mother had liked the comment. I felt heat prickling under my skin. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. He didn't name me, so I couldn't report it for harassment. But everyone in our small circle knew exactly who he was talking about. He was controlling the narrative. He was the victim of a heartless, wealthy sister who refused to help the family in their time of need. My phone started to ping with direct messages from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in a year. "Willow, I saw Caleb's post. I hope you guys can work this out. Your mom sounds devastated. Is it really over a car loan? Surely you can help him out." From a girl I went to high school with. "Hey, heard some drama. Just ignore the haters." Fishing for information. From my godfather. "Your father is a good man. Willow, don't break his heart over money. You can't take it with you." I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. This was the punishment. This was the cutting out. They were isolating me, turning the community against me, making the social cost of my resistance so high that I would cave just to make it stop. Maya called me. "I told you not to look," she said. "They are destroying my reputation," I said, my voice tight. "They are making me look like a monster." "They are baiting you," Maya said. "If you respond, you look defensive. If you argue in the comments, you look dramatic. That is what they want. They want you to get in the mud with them so they can point and say, 'Look, she is crazy.'" "So I just stay silent?" I asked. "I let them lie?" "Silence is dignity," Maya said. "No," I said, thinking of the good morning texts that stopped, thinking of the empty group chat. "Silence is what they use to trap me. If I stay silent now, I am accepting their version of the truth." "Willow, be careful," Maya warned. "I am done being careful," I said. "I am going to be accurate." I hung up. I drafted an email. I didn't post on Facebook. A Facebook comment is a scream in a crowded room. An email is a deposition. I added the recipients: my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my godfather, the key influencers of the Bryant clan. Subject: regarding recent events, family. I am writing this to correct some misinformation that seems to be circulating. I love my family, and I have always supported them. However, last week, an application for a $55,000 loan was submitted in my name without my knowledge or consent. This application used a falsified address to hide the paperwork from me and included a forged signature. I have filed a police report for identity theft, and my attorney is currently handling the matter with the lender. This is not a disagreement about helping family. This is a legal matter regarding fraud. I will not be discussing this further, but I wanted to ensure the facts were known. I hope you can respect my privacy as I resolve this. Sincerely, Willow. I hit send. The reaction was instantaneous. Within 5 minutes, my phone lit up. "Cousin Jenna, you called the police on your own brother? You are sick." Aunt Marlene. "Oh, Honey, you shouldn't have put this in writing. Now it is war. My father. Don't ever contact my brothers again. You are dead to us. I put the phone down on the desk. My hands were shaking, but my heart was beating with a slow, steady rhythm. The backlash proved I was right. If it had been a misunderstanding, they would have been confused. They would have asked questions. Instead, they attacked. They attacked because I had broken the code of silence. I had exposed the secret. I looked at the email again. $55,000. Something about the number bothered me. I pulled up the Kelley Blue Book website. I searched for a 2024 Ford F-250, basic work trim. Even with some upgrades, the market price was around $48,000. Caleb had said 55, plus taxes and fees, maybe 52. But 55 was high, and Aunt Marlene had mentioned a bind. She had mentioned money moving around. I went back to the paperwork the lender had sent me. The document correction included a copy of the loan structure. Sale price, $58,000. Trade-in, none. Cash, down, none. Add-ons, gap insurance, $1,200. Extended warranty, $3,500. Tire wheel protection, $900. And there, buried in the line items, negative equity rollover. There was no trade-in listed, so where was the negative equity coming from? I remembered Caleb's old sedan, the one he owned, but did he? And then I remembered something else, my parents' house refinance. My father had mentioned a year ago that they took some cash out to do renovations, but the renovations never happened. I grabbed a calculator. If Caleb owed $10,000 on the sedan, and they rolled it into the truck loan, that would push it to $65,000. But the loan was capped at $55,000 for approval reasons, unless the truck loan wasn't just buying a truck. I called Vance. Vance, I said, can a dealership write a check back to the buyer as part of a loan? Not legally, Vance said, but if they inflate the value of the trade-in, or if they bill for consulting fees, or if they just cut a side deal? Yeah, it happens. Why? I think they are cashing out, I said. I think the truck is a mule. They are inflating the price, getting the loan for the max amount my credit can support, and someone is pocketing the difference, or they are paying off a debt off the books. That changes things, Vance said, his voice dropping an octave. That is bank fraud. Conspiracy. That is federal prison time. My aunt said they were in a bind, I said. She said my refusal messed up something bigger. Willow, Vance said, if you are right, you aren't just a victim of identity theft. You are the collateral damage in a laundering scheme. We need those bank records. Now. I hung up the phone. I looked out the window at the peaceful street, at the normal people walking their dogs. They had no idea that behind the closed doors of 12 Oak Lane, my family had turned into a criminal enterprise. And the terrifying part was not that they were criminals. It was that they truly believed they were the heroes of the story, doing whatever it took to survive. And I was the villain for refusing to bleed for them. I was the designated collateral. But collateral is something you sacrifice. I wasn't going to be sacrificed. The email from Elias Vance arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. A digital packet of misery that sat in my inbox like an unexploded bomb. The subject line was sterile. Discovery documents. Loan application $45,990. I had spent the last 3 days in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions of my life while my mind replayed the confrontation at my parents' house on a loop. I kept hoping, with a desperate, childish part of my heart, that I was wrong. I wanted there to be a misunderstanding. I wanted the lender to call and say it was a clerical error, a mix-up with another Willow Bryant, a glitch in the matrix. I opened the attachment. It was the full loan file from LendRight Financial. Vance had threatened them with a federal lawsuit, and they had capitulated, dumping the data to absolve themselves of liability. I scrolled past the cover sheet to page 4. There it was, cosigner signature, Willow J. Bryant. It was an electronic signature, the kind captured on a digital pad or a tablet. It was jagged, pixelated, but it was unmistakably an attempt to mimic my hand. The loop of the W was wide, just the way I wrote it. The B in Bryant had the same sharp upstroke. Someone had practiced. I felt a cold sweat prickle the back of my neck. This wasn't just someone typing my name into a box. This was someone holding a stylus, thinking about the curvature of my letters, trying to become me for the split second it took to commit a crime. I scrolled down to the metadata section. In the modern world, nothing is truly anonymous. Every digital action leaves a footprint, a timestamp, a location, device ID, iPad Pro, Gen 4, IP, address, 192.168.1.1, local network. Geolocation latitude, /longitude, 34.0522 north, 118.2437 west. Timestamp, Friday, October 14th, 2:15 p.m. I copied the coordinates into Google Maps. The red pin dropped onto a satellite image of a suburban cul-de-sac. It didn't land on a generic cell tower. It landed on a gray roof with a detached garage and a manicured lawn. 12 Oak Lane. My parents' house. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. The date and time, Friday at 2:15 in the afternoon. I was at work that day. I was sitting in a logistics meeting discussing shipping container tariffs. I have the meeting minutes to prove it. But my brother was there, and my parents were there. The proof was absolute. It wasn't a suspicion anymore. It wasn't a theory about mail redirection or unspoken pressures. It was a digital fingerprint that placed the crime in the living room where I learned to walk. I closed the laptop and put my head in my hands. A sound escaped me, a ragged, ugly noise that was half sob, half gasp. I had wanted the truth, but the truth was a physical blow. It meant that at 2:15 on a Friday afternoon, people I loved, people who had bandaged my scraped knees and cheered at my graduation, had huddled around an iPad and decided that my financial safety was less important than their immediate desire. They had crossed a line. And the terrifying thing about lines is that once you cross them, you scuff them out. There is no way back. I met with Detective Thorne the next morning. He was a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite and then eroded by years of listening to people lie. His office was a cubicle in the fraud division, stacked high with manila folders that leaned precariously like the Tower of Pisa. He picked up the printout of the geolocation data I had brought. He studied it for a long time, chewing on the end of a plastic stirrer. "This is solid," Thorne said. His voice was gravelly, devoid of judgment. "You have the IP, the device ID, and the alibi for yourself. We can subpoena the ISP to confirm the subscriber at that address, but we both know whose name is on the cable bill." "My father," I said. "Robert Bryant?" Thorne nodded. He put the paper down and looked at me. His eyes were kind, which made it worse. "I need to tell you something. Ms. Bryant," he said. "Family identity theft cases are common. We see them more than stranger theft, but they are also the hardest emotionally, and they are the hardest to prosecute." "Why?" I asked. "The evidence is right there." "Because of the cringe factor," he said. "Juries don't like sending grandmas and grandpas to prison, and usually, halfway through the process, the victim gets cold feet. Thanksgiving comes around, or a birthday. The guilt sets in. You start thinking, is it really worth giving my brother a felony record over a truck? You drop the charges, and then we look like bad guys for harassing a nice family." "I won't drop the charges," I said. My voice sounded hollow in my own ears. "You say that now," Thorne said. "But right now, you are angry. In a month, you will be sad, and your family knows that. They are counting on it. They are going to pressure you. They are going to tell you that you are ruining their lives. They are going to say you are criminalizing a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," I said. "They forged my signature." "I know," Thorne said. "I am just warning you. If we file this, if we issue warrants, the police go to that house, we take the iPad, we take the computers, we fingerprint your brother, maybe your parents too. Depending on who was in the room, it is a nuclear option. Once I push the button, I can't unpush it." I thought about my mother's face when she closed the door on me. I thought about the text from my father telling me I was dead to them. They already pushed the button, I said. I am just dealing with the fallout. Thorne nodded slowly. Okay. I will open the file. We will start with the dealership. See if we can get the finance manager to flip. If he admits he knew the signer wasn't you, it becomes conspiracy. Conspiracy, I repeated. It sounded like a word from a mob movie, not a word that belonged in a conversation about the Bryant family. I left the station and sat in my car. My hands were shaking. I needed to know about the dealership. Vance, my attorney, had sent the letters. But the silence from that end was deafening. I dialed the number for Russo Ford. Sales, a chirpy voice answered. Finance department. Please, I said. One moment. Music started playing. It was a distorted, tinny loop of soft jazz. I waited and waited. 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Finance. This is Greg, a man answered. I am looking for the finance manager who handled the Bryant file, I said. Is there a David S. there? There was a pause, a hesitation that felt heavy. Who is calling? Greg asked. Willow Bryant, I said. I am the alleged co-signer on the account. Oh, Greg said. The syllable was short, panicked. David isn't available right now. He is with a customer. I can wait, I said. Actually, I think he's out for the day, Greg corrected himself quickly, and we have been instructed to refer all inquiries regarding that file to legal. To legal? I asked. So you know which file I'm talking about without even looking it up. Ma'am, I can't talk to you, Greg said. Please don't call this line again. Click, the line went dead. I stared at the phone. It wasn't just a brush-off. It was a wall. A wall went up the moment I said my name. They were circling the wagons. Mr. Russo, the family friend, the man who shook my hand at church, had given the order, don't talk to her. They were terrified. And if they were terrified, it meant Vance was right. This wasn't just a sloppy application. It was something systematic. I drove home, the sense of isolation growing with every mile. I felt radioactive. My family wouldn't talk to me. The dealership wouldn't talk to me. The only people who would talk to me were lawyers and cops. I needed answers that didn't come in legal briefs. I needed the why. I pulled into my driveway and saw a familiar car parked across the street. It was a silver sedan. My Aunt Marlene. She was sitting in the driver's seat, wearing sunglasses, looking nervously at the neighbors' houses. When she saw me, she got out and hurried across the street, clutching her purse like a shield. Willow, she hissed. Can we go inside? I can't be seen here. I unlocked the front door and she practically ran into my living room. She looked tired. Her usually perfect makeup was smudge, and she smelled like nervous sweat and perfume. Did Mom send you? I asked. Standing by the door, I didn't offer her a seat. No, Marlene said, taking off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. Linda would kill me if she knew I was here. She has forbidden anyone from speaking to you. She says you are dead to us. So I heard, I said. Why are you here, Marlene? Because this is getting out of hand, she said. I heard about the police report. Willow, you can't put your father in jail. I am not putting him in jail, I said. He put himself there when he committed fraud. Why did they do it? Marlene, just tell me the truth. Why $55,000? Why now? Marlene sighed, collapsing onto my sofa uninvited. She looked defeated. It is the house, she whispered. The house? I asked. What about it? They refinanced it 6 months ago, she said. To pay off Caleb's gambling debts. The world stopped spinning for a second. Gambling debts? Online sports betting, Marlene said, waving her hand. He got into a hole, a big one, 30,000. People were threatening him. Your parents panicked. They took a high-interest equity loan on the house to pay it off. They thought he learned his lesson. But he didn't, I guessed. He lost his job at the warehouse because he was betting on his phone, Marlene said. So now they have the mortgage. The equity loan payments. And Caleb is unemployed. They are drowning. Willow, they are 3 months behind on the equity loan. The bank is threatening foreclosure. So the truck, I started, the pieces clicking together in a horrifying mosaic. The truck was the Hail Mary, Marlene said. Caleb convinced them that if he had a business truck, he could get landscaping contracts immediately. High-paying ones. He said he had clients lined up, but he couldn't get the truck without credit, and they needed the truck to show income potential to refinance the equity loan again. It is a house of cards. It wasn't just a truck, I said, remembering the inflated price. They were doing a cash out, weren't they? The loan was for $58,000. The truck is worth $48,000. Where was the extra $10,000 going? Marlene looked away. Caleb said the dealership could write a check for upfitting the truck, tools, decals, but he was going to use the cash to pay the arrears on the house so they wouldn't lose it. I felt sick, physically, violently sick. It wasn't just greed. It was a frantic, spiraling desperation. They were cannibalizing my future to pay for their past mistakes. They were willing to destroy my credit, my ability to buy a home, my security, just to plug a hole in a sinking ship that Caleb kept drilling into. And the silent treatment? I asked. The way they cut me off? Strategy, Marlene admitted, her voice barely audible. Caleb told them that if they froze you out, you would feel guilty. He said you were weak when it came to family. He said if they made you feel like the bad guy, you would sign just to get them to talk to you again. They needed to stall you while the dealership pushed the paperwork through. I am weak, I repeated. That is what he thinks? He thinks you are soft, Marlene said. He thinks you need their approval more than you need your money. I looked at my aunt. She was part of it. She had known. She had watched them plan this siege and said nothing until the police were involved. You need to leave, I said. Willow, please, she begged. Just drop the report. They will lose the house if you don't. The legal fees alone. They should have thought about the house before they tried to steal mine, I said. Get out. Marlene. She left. I stood in the silence of my home. It felt different now. It didn't feel lonely. It felt fortified. They thought I was soft. They thought I was a child who would cry if Mommy stopped talking to me. They had weaponized my love for them. They had turned my loyalty into a vulnerability to be exploited. I went to my computer. I opened my email. I didn't write a long, emotional letter. I didn't ask why. I didn't scream. I wrote a contract. To Robert Bryant, Linda Bryant, Caleb Bryant. Subject: cease and desist / no contact boundary. Effective immediately. I am enforcing a strict no contact boundary. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not come to my home. Do not send third parties to contact me. Any communication regarding the unauthorized loan application at Russo Ford must be directed to my attorney. Elias Vance. I have provided the police and the fraud investigators with all digital evidence, including the IP logs originating from your residence. If you attempt to use my personal information for any financial purpose again, I will press for the maximum criminal penalty available under the law. If you continue to slander me publicly or privately, I will pursue a civil suit for defamation. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. Willow Bryant. I hit send. I stared at the screen, waiting. I knew it wouldn't take long. 3 minutes later, a reply came. Not from Caleb. From my mother. How dare you? How dare you threaten your own father with lawyers? After everything we did for you, after we paid for your braces, after we paid for your wedding dress, you are ungrateful. You are making us look like criminals to the whole town. Mr. Russo called us. He is furious. Do you know how embarrassing this is? To have the police asking questions? You are destroying this family's image. You are selfish. I hope your money keeps you warm at night, because you won't have us. I read the email twice. There was no denial. There was no, we didn't do it. There was no, we are sorry we hurt you. There was only rage about the image. You are making us look like criminals. You are destroying this family's image. That was the core of it. That was the rotten heart of the Bryant family. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about safety. It was about how we looked to the neighbors. It was about Mr. Russo's opinion. They were willing to commit a felony, but they were outraged that I had exposed the felony. They valued their reputation as good people more than they valued being good people. I archived the email into the evidence folder. The next week was a blur of legal maneuvering. Vance was moving forward with the civil angle. He was drafting a complaint against Russo Ford for negligent verification and violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. He argued that the dealership had a duty of care to verify the identity of a co-signer in person, especially for a high-value loan. By bypassing that step, by vouching for me without seeing me, they were liable for the damages. "We are going to hit the dealership's insurance policy," Vance told me. "That is where the money is, but it also puts pressure on them to give up the individual who authorized it." Meanwhile, Detective Thorne was building the criminal case. He had subpoenaed the dealership's internal emails. He was looking for the communication between Caleb and the finance manager. "If we find an email where your brother asks them to overlook the signature," Thorne said, "it is a slam dunk." I should have felt triumphant. I was winning. The machinery of justice was working exactly as it was designed to. But I didn't feel like a winner. I felt heavy. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. Every time I saw a silver car, I thought it was my parents coming to scream at me. The guilt was a constant, low-level hum in my brain. "They are going to lose the house," the voice whispered. "Dad is going to lose his pension if he gets sued. Caleb will have a record. You are burning it all down." I had to remind myself, every hour, that I didn't light the match. I was just refusing to stay in the burning building. On Friday night, I was cleaning out my digital files, organizing old photos to move to a hard drive, just in case I needed to move, in case I needed to disappear. I found a folder labeled voicemails. I had saved them from years ago. Most were mundane. "Hey, pick up milk. Call me back." But there was one from 3 years ago. The date was the day I got my promotion to Senior Logistics Coordinator. I clicked play. My father's voice filled the room. It sounded different then. Warmer, lighter. "Willowbug, it's Dad. Your mom just told me the news." "Senior Coordinator, that is my girl. I knew you could do it. You are the smartest Bryant of the bunch. You know that? We are so proud of you. Honey, you've got a good head on your shoulders. You earned this. Just wanted to say I love you. Come by for dinner Sunday. Proud of you." I sat in the dark, listening to the silence after the click. "You have got a good head on your shoulders. You earned this." I closed my eyes, and the tears finally came. Hot, stinging tears that ran down my face and dripped onto my shirt. He had been proud of me. He had respected me. But somewhere along the way, that pride had twisted into envy. Or maybe it wasn't envy. Maybe it was just utility. I had become a resource. I was no longer his daughter. I was an asset class. I was a credit score to be harvested. The man on that voicemail, the man who called me Willowbug, was gone. He had been replaced by a man who forged my signature on a federal document and then threatened to disown me for catching him. He chose the scheme. He chose the lie. He chose the image of the good family over the reality of his daughter. I didn't delete the voicemail. I moved it to the evidence folder. Not as legal proof, but as proof for myself. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that I'd lost something real. And proof that the father I was grieving was already dead. I wiped my face. I turned off the computer. I had a deposition on Monday. I needed to be ready. The letter from Lendrite confirming the closure of the fraudulent account arrived on a Monday. It was a single sheet of paper, clinically worded, stating that the application had been withdrawn and the file was flagged for internal review. It should have felt like a victory. It should have been the moment I popped a bottle of champagne and breathed a sigh of relief. Instead, it felt like looking at a scar after the stitches are removed. The wound was closed, yes, but the skin was puckered and tight, and I knew it would never look the same again. The damage was not contained to a single file at a single bank. It had bled out into the rest of my financial life like ink in water. That afternoon, I received a call from Sarah, my mortgage broker. We had been working together for 3 months to get me pre-approved for a condo in the historic district, a 2-bedroom unit with exposed brick and a view of the river. It was the physical manifestation of my independence, the place where I was going to build a life that was entirely my own. "Willow," Sarah said, and her tone was apologetic but firm. "I got the alert about the fraud dispute on your credit report." "It is handled," I said quickly, gripping the phone. "I have the letter from the lender. It was identity theft. I can send you the police report." "I know," Sarah said, "and I believe you. But here's the problem. When a credit file has a fraud alert and a recent dispute of this magnitude, the underwriters get skittish. Your score also took a dip because of the hard inquiry. It dropped 20 points. That bumps you out of the prime interest rate tier." "20 points?" I asked. "For an inquiry I didn't authorize?" "It takes time to reverse it," she explained. "We have to wait for the bureaus to scrub the record. That could take 30 days. It could take 90. Until then, the pre-approval is on hold. And that condo, the seller isn't going to wait 90 days. Willow, they have a cash offer on the table." I sat in my office chair, staring at a spreadsheet I couldn't focus on. The condo was gone. My safe harbor, my future home, was gone. "I see," I said. My voice sounded very small. "I am sorry," Sarah said. "We can try again in the spring." I hung up. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach, a mixture of grief and a darkening realization. My family hadn't just tried to steal $55,000. They had stolen my timeline. They had stolen my momentum. They had reached into my future and smashed it, simply because they were careless with their own. I thought the worst was over. I thought that by catching them, by freezing my credit, I had stopped the bleeding. I was wrong. 2 days later, on Wednesday evening, I was sitting on my couch with my laptop, obsessively refreshing my credit card dashboard. It had become a tic, a nervous habit I couldn't break. I saw a new notification. New inquiry detected. Soft pull. Quick cash auto loans. Date: today. I froze. A soft pull doesn't impact your credit score, but it tells a story. It means a lender is looking at your file to see if you qualify for an offer, or because someone is trying to pre-qualify you without triggering a hard alert. Quick Cash Auto Loans was a bottom-feeder lender, the kind that advertised on late-night television with screaming graphics and promises of no credit, no problem. I hadn't applied to Quick Cash, which meant my family wasn't stopping. They knew I had caught them with LendRight. They knew I had frozen my credit. But instead of backing down, instead of collapsing in shame and begging for forgiveness, they were shopping. They were looking for a lender that might be sloppy enough to miss the freeze, or a lender that used a different data verification system. They weren't regretting the mistake. They were trying to find a route around the obstacle. And I was the obstacle. The rage that hit me then was different from the anger I had felt before. It was colder. It was sharper. It was the clarifying fury of someone who realizes they are not dealing with a loved one who made an error, but with an antagonist who is actively hunting them. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to their house. Not yet. I needed to see the architect of this disaster. I texted Caleb, "Meet me at the Starbucks on 4th and Main. 30 minutes. If you aren't there, I drive straight to the police station to upgrade the report to active pursuit." He replied in 2 minutes. Fine. The Starbucks was crowded, filled with the hum of espresso machines and the murmur of conversations. I chose a table in the corner, one with a clear view of the door but enough distance from the other patrons to offer a semblance of privacy. I asked Maya to come, not to sit with me, but to sit 2 tables away, wearing headphones that weren't playing anything. I needed a witness, but I didn't want Caleb to know she was there. Caleb walked in 10 minutes late. He was wearing sunglasses, even though it was overcast, and a leather jacket that looked new. He scanned the room, saw me, and sauntered over with a swagger that set my teeth on edge. It was a performance. He was trying to project dominance. He pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down. spreading his legs wide. He didn't take off the sunglasses. "Look who crawled back," he said, smirking. "Mom said you went nuclear. Lawyers, police reports. You really are a drama queen. Willow." "Take off the glasses." "Caleb," I said. He hesitated, then sighed and slid them onto his head. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked tired, despite the bravado. "I saw the inquiry from Quick Cash," I said. "Today, you are still trying." "I don't know what you are talking about," he said, leaning back. "I am just living my life. Maybe lenders are checking me out because I'm a catch." "They are checking me out," I said, "because you are using my name, again." "Prove it," he said. He crossed his arms. "You have no proof. You have a paranoid theory. I told Mom and Dad you agreed to help me. I told them you said yes at Sunday dinner, then got cold feet and tried to cover your ass by crying fraud. That is the story. Willow. And guess who they believe? The son who needs help, or the daughter who thinks she is better than everyone else?" "I didn't say yes," I said calmly. "I offered you alternatives. You stormed out." "It is your word against mine," he said, flashing a grin that was meant to be charming but looked predatory. "And in this family, my word carries weight. You are making yourself look crazy. Just sign the papers. We'll drop the freeze. Let me get the truck. We can put this all behind us. You are embarrassing yourself." I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I opened it slowly. "It isn't my word against yours," I said. I slid the first paper across the table. It was the map I had printed, the one with the red pin on our parents' house. "This is the geolocation log from the digital signature on the LendRight application," I said. "It pinpoints Dad's iPad, inside the house, at 2:15 on Friday. I was at work. I have sworn affidavits from my boss and the building security logs proving I was 10 miles away." Caleb looked at the map. His smirk faltered. "So?" he said. "So I signed it at the house. You told me to. You authorized me to sign for you. Did I?" I asked. I slid the second paper across. "This is the transcript of the call I made to Credit Guard 3 minutes after the first inquiry hit. I reported it as fraud immediately. If I authorized you, why would I report it as a crime 3 minutes later?" He didn't answer. He was staring at the paper. "And this," I said, sliding the third paper, a screenshot of the text messages I sent him that day, "is me asking you why there was an inquiry and you denying it. If I authorized it, why did you deny it?" "Stop it," he muttered. "And this," I said, putting the final piece of paper on the table, "is a copy of the dealership notes Elias Vance got from the discovery process. It says, 'Applicant states sister is unavailable to sign. Requests remote signing via email.' It doesn't say sister authorized proxy signature. It says I wasn't there." Caleb looked up. The swagger was gone. In its place was the panicked look of a child who has broken a vase and realizes the glue isn't holding. "You are criminalizing family," he hissed, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You are going to send the police to Mom and Dad's house? Over a truck?" "Not over a truck," I said. "Over a felony. You stole my name, Caleb, you and Dad, and you are still doing it. If I see one more inquiry, one more soft pull, one more piece of mail, I am not calling the lawyer. I am handing this file to the district attorney." "You wouldn't," he said, but he didn't sound sure. "Try me," I said. "I lost the condo. Caleb, I lost my home because of you. I have nothing left to lose." I stood up. "Tell Mom and Dad to stop shopping my credit, or I will shop you to the state prosecutor." I walked out. I didn't look at Maya, but I saw her give a subtle nod as I passed. She had heard everything. The invitation came the next morning. It wasn't a text. It was a voicemail from my mother. Her voice sounded strained, tight, as if she were holding back a scream or a sob. "Willow, we need to sit down. All of us. This has gone too far. We want to explain everything. We want to make peace. Please come to the house on Saturday at noon. We can fix this." I played the message for Elias Vance over the speakerphone in his office. "Don't go," Vance said immediately. "It is an ambush. They want to get you in a room, gang up on you, and emotional blackmail you into dropping the police report." "I have to go," I said. "I need to look them in the eye. I need to know if there is anything left of this family to save." "If you go," Vance said, sighing, "do not go alone. Bring a witness, a neutral third party, someone who isn't family. Their presence changes the dynamic. It forces your parents to behave. Or at least, it prevents them from lying about what was said later." "I am taking Maya," I said. "Good," Vance said. "And Willow, record it. We are in a one-party consent state. You don't have to tell them the phone is recording. Just put it on the table face down." Saturday was overcast. The sky a bruised purple. I drove to 12 Oak Lane with Maya in the passenger seat. Maya was a paralegal, sharp and silent. She knew exactly what her role was, to be a human shield. The driveway was full. Caleb's sedan was there. My Aunt Marlene's silver car was there, and my Uncle Jerry's truck. "They brought reinforcements," Maya noted dryly. "They brought a firing squad," I corrected. We walked up the path. My stomach was twisting in knots, but my hands were steady. I had the evidence folder in my bag. I had my phone recording in my pocket. My mother opened the door. She was wearing her Sunday best, a floral dress that looked incongruous with the tension radiating off her. When she saw Maya, her smile froze. "Willow," she said, "and Maya, we thought this was a family meeting." "Maya is my support," I said, stepping inside before she could block me. "She is just here to listen." We walked into the living room. It was set up like a tribunal. My father sat in his recliner, looking grim. Caleb sat on the ottoman, staring at the floor. Aunt Marlene and Uncle Jerry were on the sofa. There was a single empty chair in the center of the room, facing them. It was designed to make me feel small. It was designed to make me feel like the accused. I didn't sit in the empty chair. I pulled a dining room chair over to the corner and sat next to Maya. "So," my father began, his voice heavy, "we are here because Willow has decided to involve the authorities in a family matter." "We are here," I said, cutting him off, "because my identity was stolen." "It was not stolen," Aunt Marlene cried out. She looked nervous, glancing between me and my father. "It was borrowed. We were going to pay it back. Willow, you have to understand. The family is in a crisis." "I know about the house," I said. "I know about the refinance. I know about the gambling debts." Caleb's head snapped up. He looked at Marlene with pure venom. She shrank back into the cushions. "If you know," my father said, leaning forward, "then you know why we did it. We are trying to save the roof over our heads. We are trying to save your brother's future. Is that a crime? To help your own blood?" "Yes," I said. "Forgery is a crime. Fraud is a crime." "Oh, stop using those words," my mother shouted. Standing up, she began to pace. "You sound like a lawyer. You sound cold. We are your parents. We changed your diapers. We paid for your college. And now, when we ask for one thing, one signature, you act like we are strangers." "You didn't ask," I said. You took my name. You took my credit history. You took my safety." "We were helping you too," Uncle Jerry chimed in. He was a large man who always smelled of cigar smoke. "If Caleb gets the truck, he makes money. If he makes money, he pays the house. Then you don't have to worry about your parents being homeless. It was a win-win." "It was a lie," I said. "You inflated the price of the truck. You were cashing out. You were rolling negative equity. You were using me as a mule to launder debt." The room went deadly quiet. "Who told you that?" Caleb whispered. "Math told me that," I said. "I saw the loan breakdown." "Willow," my father said, his voice changing. He softened it, adopting the tone of the benevolent patriarch. "Listen, we made a mistake not telling you the full plan. We were trying to protect you from the stress. We handled it badly. We admit that. But we can fix it. We have a deal. A deal? I asked. Sign the papers now, he said. Legitimately. Co-sign the loan. We will use the cash out to bring the mortgage current. Caleb gets the truck and starts working. We will pay the monthly note. You won't pay a dime. We promise. And in exchange, you drop the police report. We become a family again. I looked at them. They were all nodding. Even Caleb looked hopeful. They truly believed this was a generous offer. They were offering me the privilege of taking on $55,000 of debt to save them from the consequences of their own actions. And if I don't? I asked. Then you ruin us, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. You put your father in court. You put your brother in jail. You take away our home. Is that what you want? To be the daughter who destroyed her family? I didn't destroy it, I said. You did when you redirected my mail. We never redirected your mail, my mother protested. That is a lie. The bank made a mistake with the address. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. The audio clip was short. It was from the call I had made to the funding department, the one I had recorded on Vance's advice, Lendright Rep. The notes here say the primary applicant, Caleb Bryant, requested all loan documents be sent to the Oak Lane address. He stated that the co-signer was currently in the process of moving back into the family home. I hit stop. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a vacuum. My mother's face went pale. My father closed his eyes. They had been caught in the lie. Not a misunderstanding, a calculated, documented lie. You told them I was moving back in, I said softly. You were going to trap me here. You were going to make me a dependent again. We did it for you, my mother burst out. The scream was guttural, raw. We did it because you are the only one who can carry it. What? I asked. You are the strong one, she yelled. She wasn't crying anymore. She was shaking with rage. Caleb is Caleb. He is fragile. He needs help. He needs a push. But you? You have always been fine. You are the responsible one. You are the backup plan. Willow, that is your job. You are supposed to fix it when we break things. The words hung in the air like smoke. You are the backup plan. That is your job. It was the ugliest truth I had ever heard. It stripped away every illusion I had left. I wasn't their child. I wasn't a person with dreams and limits. I was their insurance policy. I was the spare tire they kept in the trunk, ignored until they had a blowout, and then furious when I wasn't inflated enough to carry the load. I looked at Maya. She was staring at my mother with a look of pure horror. I stood up. I felt incredibly light, as if a heavy coat had been stripped from my shoulders. I am not a backup plan, I said. I am a person, and I am done fixing things I didn't break. If you walk out that door, my father said, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and fury. Don't come back. I mean it. Willow, if you proceed with this legal nonsense, you are an orphan. I looked at the man who had taught me to ride a bike. I looked at the woman who had braided my hair. I looked at the brother I had defended on the playground. I saw strangers, desperate, dangerous strangers. I think I have been an orphan for a long time, I said. I just didn't realize it until today. I turned to Maya. Let's go. Willow, my mother screamed as I opened the door. Willow, come back here. You selfish little... I closed the door. The sound of the latch clicking shut was the loudest sound in the world. We walked to the car in silence. The sky was still purple, but the air felt different. It felt thin. It felt final. I got into the driver's seat and put the key in the ignition. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't turn it. Maya reached over and put her hand on mine. You did it, she whispered. You survived. I survived, I repeated. But as I looked at the house one last time, at the curtains twitching in the window, I knew the survival had come at a cost. The bridge was burned. The ash was in my mouth. I knew what I had to do next. I had to call Detective Thorne. I had to give him the green light to serve the warrants. I had to send the police to that house. I was going to save myself. but I was going to lose them. I turned the key. The engine roared to life. I drove away from 12 Oak Lane, leaving the ghosts behind me, and I didn't look back. The silence that had suffocated me for weeks was broken not by a scream, but by the ringing of a telephone, and then another, and then another. Once Detective Thorne began making his official inquiries, once he flashed his badge at the receptionist of Russo Ford and left a voicemail on my father's home line requesting a preliminary interview regarding a felony fraud investigation, the dam broke. The family strategy of isolation, the coordinated freeze-out designed to starve me of affection until I capitulated, collapsed instantly. In its place came a frantic, terrified flood of noise. It started on a Tuesday. 3 days after the disastrous meeting at my parents' house, I was at work, staring at a spreadsheet, when my cell phone vibrated. It was my Uncle Jerry. The same Uncle Jerry who had sat on my parents' sofa and told me I was ruining the family. "Willow, honey, call me back. We are just worried about you. Let's grab coffee." My treat. I didn't answer. An hour later, Aunt Marlene called, then a cousin I hadn't spoken to since Christmas. Then, shockingly, my mother. She called 4 times in a row. When I didn't pick up, she texted, "Please pick up. Dad is having chest pains. You are killing him." It was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. They were trying to flip the switch. They thought that if they poured enough love and concern into the void, I would forget the forgery. They thought that if they feigned a medical emergency, my father had chest pains every time he wanted to get out of a speeding ticket, I would rush back to their side, weeping and ready to sign whatever they put in front of me. It was as if they believed love was a faucet. They thought they could turn it off to punish me, and turn it back on to save themselves. They didn't understand that the pipes had rusted shut. I forwarded every call log and every text message to Detective Thorne and Elias Vance. I didn't reply to a single one. My silence was no longer a defensive crouch. It was a gavel. The notice arrived via certified mail on a Thursday. It was a summons for a preliminary evidentiary hearing. Because of the complexity of the case, the civil dispute Vance had filed against the lender and the dealership, running parallel to the criminal investigation Thorne was building, the district court had ordered a session to determine the validity of the fraud claim before the grand jury convened. It was a procedural step, a way for the judge to see if there was enough smoke to justify a fire. I held the paper in my hands. State versus Doe/Bryant versus Lend-Right Financial. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. It wasn't fear of the truth. I knew the truth. I had the truth in a folder on my desk, organized by date and time. It was the nausea of exposure. Up until this moment, the war had been fought in living rooms, in emails, and in the quiet offices of lawyers. It was ugly, but it was private. Now, it was going to be public. It was going to be entered into the permanent record. Strangers were going to hear about my father's failed refinance. Strangers were going to see my brother's desperate texts. The illusion of the good Bryant family was about to be autopsied in open court. And I was the one holding the scalpel. I sat on my kitchen floor, clutching the summons, and wept for 10 minutes. I wept for the barbecues we would never have again. I wept for the Christmas mornings that were now just memories. I wept for the version of my life where I was just a daughter, not a plaintiff. Then I washed my face, put on a pot of coffee, and called Vance. "I am ready," I said. "Good," Vance said. "Wear navy blue. It reads as trustworthy." The night before the hearing, my phone rang at 11 o'clock. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I saw the name on the screen. Dad. I knew I shouldn't answer. I knew Vance would tell me to let it go to voicemail. But a part of me, the part that was 5 years old and wanted her daddy to fix her scraped knee, needed to hear his voice one last time. I let it ring until the voicemail picked up. Then I listened to the message. His voice was thick, heavy with bourbon and exhaustion. "Willow," he said. There was a long pause. "Willow, this has gone too far. I know you are angry, and maybe we pushed too hard. I am willing to admit that. We let it go too far. I held my breath. Was this it? Was this the apology? But you have to stop this, he continued, his tone shifting from regret to bargaining. You can't walk into that courtroom tomorrow. If you do, you mark your brother for life. You mark me. I am asking you, as your father, to handle this quietly. We can work out a payment plan. The courthouse was a brutalist concrete building that smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. The fluorescent lights hummed with a low, headache-inducing buzz. I wore the navy blue suit. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. I wore no jewelry except for a small watch. I looked like what I was, a logistics coordinator, a woman of details, a woman who kept receipts. Vance met me in the lobby. He looked sharp, predatory. They are going to try to rattle you, he warned. Lenwright sent their regional counsel. Russo Ford sent a shark from downtown. And your family has a public defender for Caleb and a private attorney for your parents. It is going to be a crowded room. I don't care, I said. I just want to tell the truth. We walked into the hearing room. It wasn't a grand courtroom like in the movies. It was a smaller, functional room with wood-paneled walls and a long table for the defense. And there they were. My parents sat behind their lawyer. My mother looked small, shrunken. She was wearing a gray cardigan and clutching a tissue. She wouldn't look at me. My father sat rigid, staring straight ahead at the judge's bench, his jaw set in a line of granite. Caleb sat at the end of the table. He looked terrible. He was wearing a suit that didn't fit him, probably one of my father's old ones. He looked young, terrified, and sweaty when I walked in. He looked up, and for a second, his eyes met mine. I saw a flicker of pleading. Help me. Wills. I looked away. I focused on the judge, a stern woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. The proceedings began. It started with the lender's attorney, a slick man named Mr. Henderson. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth as oil. This is a waste of the court's time. This is not a case of identity theft. This is a domestic dispute, a case of buyer's remorse. Ms. Bryant agreed to help her brother, provided her information, and then, after a family disagreement, decided to weaponize the legal system to punish them. Lenwright acted in good faith based on the credentials provided. He turned to look at me, a smirk playing on his lips. We have seen this 1,000 times. The sister gets cold feet. She wants to teach her brother a lesson. But filing a false police report is a crime, Your Honor. He was painting me as the villain, the vindictive, hysterical sister. Vance stood up. He didn't smirk. He picked up a binder. Your Honor, Vance said, if this were a case of buyer's remorse, my client would have signed the documents. She did not. The signature on the loan application is a digital forgery, and we can prove it. I was called to the stand. I sat in the witness chair. The wood was hard. I folded my hands in my lap. Ms. Bryant, Vance asked, did you sign the application for a loan with Lenwright Financial on October 14th? No, I said. My voice was clear. It didn't shake. Where were you on October 14th at 2:15 in the afternoon? I was at my office at Global Logistics, I said. I was leading a meeting regarding tariff updates. I have submitted the meeting minutes and the building security log showing I swiped my badge at the turnstile at 8 in the morning and did not leave until 6 in the evening. And where was the digital signature on the loan application created? Vance asked. According to the IP address and geolocation metadata provided by the lender, I said, looking at the paper in front of me. It was created at 12 Oak Lane, my parents' residence. Did you authorize anyone at that residence to sign for you? No, I said. I explicitly refused the request 3 days prior. I offered alternatives, which were rejected. When I discovered the inquiry, I immediately called the lender to report fraud and froze my credit bureaus within 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Vance repeated. Hardly the behavior of someone who agreed and then changed their mind days later. The lender's attorney tried to cross-examine me. He tried to trip me up. Ms. Bryant, he said, isn't it true that you have helped your brother financially in the past? I have bought him dinner, I said. I have never co-signed a loan. But your family had access to your personal documents, he pressed. Your social security card, your birth certificate. Why would they have those if you didn't provide them? They were in a storage box I left at their house after college, I said. They were kept for safekeeping. I did not give them to my brother for this loan. He took them. So you are accusing your parents of being accomplices to theft? He asked. Trying to shame me. I looked at my parents. My father was still staring at the wall. My mother was weeping silently. I am stating the fact that my documents were used without my permission, I said. I am stating that my mail was redirected to their address so I would not see the alerts. I am stating that the lender was told I was moving back in with them, which was a lie. The room was quiet. The facts were piling up like bricks, building a wall that no amount of emotional manipulation could breach. Then came the bombshell. Vance called his next witness. It wasn't a person, it was a deposition transcript. Your Honor, Vance said, we would like to enter into evidence the sworn deposition of David Stevens, the former finance manager at Russo Ford. Mr. Henderson, the lender's attorney, stiffened. The lawyer for the dealership looked at his shoes. Vance began to read. Question. Mr. Stevens, did you witness Willow Bryant sign the loan documents in your office? Answer. No. Question. Then why did you attest in the file that you had verified her identity in person? Answer. I was told to push it through. Question. Who told you? Answer. Caleb Bryant. And his father, Robert. They called me. Robert said his daughter was busy at work and couldn't come in, but that she was on board. He said he would get the signature on the iPad if I sent the link. He said they were good for it. I have known Robert for 20 years. He is a deacon. I didn't think he was stiffing me. Question. Did you receive any compensation for expediting this application? Answer. I was promised a bonus on the back end. And, well, the dealership needed to move the unit. It was a favor. We do it for friends of the owner sometimes. A gasp went through the room. It was small, but audible. The judge looked up from her notes. Her eyes were hard. Friends of the owner, she muttered. Vance looked at me. This was the vindication. It wasn't just my paranoia. It was a system. My father had used his social standing, his reputation as a good man, to corrupt a finance manager and bypass federal banking laws. He had traded on his name to steal mine. I looked at Caleb. The mask was gone. The smugness from the coffee shop was obliterated. He was slumped in his chair, his face gray. He realized, finally, that this wasn't a family squabble. This wasn't something he could charm his way out of. A man he knew, David, had just testified against him to save his own skin. The circle of loyalty had broken. The judge called a recess. During the break, I stood in the hallway, drinking lukewarm water from a fountain. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the adrenaline crash. Willow, I turned. It was Caleb. He was standing 10 feet away. His lawyer was on the phone down the hall. Caleb looked like a ghost. You can't talk to me, I said. My lawyer said no contact. Wills, he said. He used the childhood nickname. The one he used when we built forts in the living room. The one he used when I helped him with his math homework. Wills, please. They are talking about jail time. Real time. For me? For Dad. I know, I said. You can stop it, he said, his voice cracking. Just tell the judge you want to drop it. Tell her we worked it out. Please, I am your brother. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at him. I looked at the brother I had loved. I saw the fear in his eyes, but I also saw the entitlement. Even now, facing prison, he believed it was my job to fix it. He believed his safety was more important than my reality. It means everything, I said softly. That is why this hurts so much. If a stranger did this, I would just be angry, but you did it. Caleb, you looked at me. You saw how hard I worked to rebuild my life, and you decided it didn't matter. You decided I was just a resource to be harvested. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he sobbed. A tear leaked out. "I just needed the truck." "It wasn't just the truck," I said. "It was the cash out. It was the gambling debt. It was the lie upon lie upon lie." He froze. He didn't know I knew about the gambling. "I can't save you this time," I said. "If I save you, I lose myself, and I am done setting myself on fire to keep you warm." I turned around and walked back into the courtroom. I felt a profound, crushing grief. It was the grief of a funeral. I wasn't just burying a relationship. I was burying the fantasy of who my brother could have been. I was burying the hope that he would one day grow up. The hearing ended an hour later. The judge didn't dismiss the case. She looked at the defense table with an expression of barely concealed disgust. "Based on the evidence presented," she ruled, "specifically the geolocation data and the deposition regarding the lack of in-person verification, the court finds sufficient cause to proceed. The motion to dismiss is denied. The criminal inquiry will move to the grand jury. The civil dispute regarding the debt validity is resolved in favor of the plaintiff. Ms. Bryant is not liable for this loan." She banged the gavel. It was over, and it was just beginning. I was free of the debt. The $55,000 was gone from my name, but the criminal machine was now grinding forward, and it would consume my father and brother. I walked out of the courtroom. My phone was buzzing in my pocket. I checked it. It was a flood. "Aunt Marlene." "You heartless witch. You actually did it." "Cousin Jenna." "I hope you rot. You sent your dad to prison." "Uncle Jerry." "Don't ever come back to this town." But there were others, too. "Maya." "I am so proud of you." My boss. "Take the week off. We got you." A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. "Hey, I heard what happened. They tried to do the same thing to me with a credit card years ago. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for standing up." I put the phone away. The final confrontation happened in the corridor near the elevators. My parents were standing there, huddled with their lawyer. When they saw me, my father turned his back. He couldn't look at me. The shame was finally real. But my mother looked at me. She walked over, her heels clicking sharply on the linoleum. Her face was ravaged by crying, but her eyes were dry and hot. She stopped inches from me. "Are you happy?" she hissed. "Are you happy now? You have your credit score, you have your precious money, and you have no one." "I have myself," I said. "You destroyed this family." She spat. The venom in her voice was startling. "You tore us apart over paperwork. You are cold. Willow, you are broken." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had given birth to me. The woman who had demanded I sacrifice my future to cover their mistakes. I realized that she didn't see me. She never had. She only saw what I could provide. "I didn't destroy this family," I said. My voice was quiet, steady, and final. "You destroyed it when you chose my name as collateral." I stepped around her. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button. The doors opened, and I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I saw my mother standing in the hallway, staring at me. She looked small. She looked angry. She looked like a stranger. The doors slid shut, cutting off the view. I took a deep breath. The air in the elevator was cool and still. I was alone. I was alone, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the silence. The silence wasn't a punishment anymore. It was peace. I had paid a high price for my freedom. I had lost my history. I had lost the people I was supposed to trust most in the world. But as I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright, blinding sunlight of the afternoon, I knew I had bought something priceless. I belonged to myself, and that was a debt I would happily pay for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope Willow's journey resonated with you. It is a painful reminder that sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones with the people we love the most. I would love to hear from you. Please comment below and tell me where you are listening from. Have you ever had to draw a financial line in the sand with family? How did you handle it? If you enjoyed this story, Please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories so you don't miss the next episode. Share your thoughts in English in the comments. I read every single one. Stay safe, and remember, your peace is worth more than their approval.